Welcome to the Embodied Enlightenment podcast, your podcast for a healthier, happier, more soul-fueled you. I'm your host, Carrie Merriam, here to guide you to reclaim your power to live your ultimate life. Your journey to expanded conscious awareness begins right now. Welcome everyone to another episode of Embodied Enlightenment. Thank you so much for being here, for showing up, and for tuning in each week. For some reason, the universe keeps sending me the most incredible male mirrors, truly. And the men that keep showing up in my life have so much knowledge within the dance between all of the worlds that are being created on the planet at this time. Today we have Brett Powers with us. Brett, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, good to be here.
Yeah, and Brett comes from us from Peru. Currently, he's living there, and he's really exploring a new level of surrendering to the divine and this new level of trust in the universe. He's in the process of doing a breatharian initiative and transformation and works with 0 point technologies. He works as a Daka and facilitates awakening creation circles around the world. He leads events, conferences, retreats, workshops, hackathons, parties, and a variety of other initiatives that help individuals get into flow states. And he unifies that with quantum supercomputer. And from that field, we can relate, integrate, and heal. He spent the last 35 years of his life exploring and experimenting with the static and flow states. And he really comes from this world of business as well. So we're going to get a lot of his story, how he transitioned from business to living in the Amazon, to shamanism, to tantric sacred sexuality. And again, really connect within this podcast of how to reintegrate after you've done a lot of healing work. So we'll see where the conversation leads us. But again, Brett, thank you so much for being here, and thank you everyone for tuning in.
Yeah, thank you for the invite.
And it's so interesting if people are just joining this conversation with us that Brett and I were just connecting a few moments ago. As the moment that we connected, I could already feel that you were in this different time space reality. Like it just grounded me and got me into even slowing down of how I speak. And it's so integrated, every connection that we have of how we are co-creating now our energetic experience of this moment in time. It's a really beautiful thing.
Yeah, I mean that's my fascination with how we all influence the group field and how we contribute back into that group field, as well as get influenced by the group field or the collective unconscious, whatever we want to call that.
Yeah, so you call it group field, I call it collective consciousness, but it's all the same. So what do you think created that obsession in the first place?
In myself. I think there was I got originally brought up in a pretty lower middle class neighborhood, and we had no fences. We had like a little house and no fences, and we would just run around in the neighborhood, and it was one of those places where it was like a magical world. We were just welcome in everyone's houses in the neighborhood. I'd run around and pop into who was having the best supper and have supper there, because they'd cook the best. And we ran around as a gang of kids. And I remember like my next door neighbor were Auntie Yon and Uncle Yold, because I couldn't pronounce their names at the time. And as long as I cleaned my feet when I walked in to their house, I was always welcome. The door was always there. And we had this incredibly connected community. We used to get together on the streets and party, and the kids would all run down to the dam that was at the bottom of our road and play in the dam and fish and whatever went on. And then, when I was about 12, my dad got a huge promotion, and he's got shifted to the head office, and that was in the richest area in Johannesburg, in Bryanston. And suddenly we had this huge house, big rolling lawns, but we also had fences between all our properties and electric gates to get in and out. And suddenly I didn't know who my neighbors were. I lived there until I was like 22 when I left university. And I couldn't tell you, if I ran into my neighbors in the shops, I couldn't tell you that they lived next door to me or behind me or anywhere else. I didn't know any of the kids in my school. And also I came from, it felt like I was 3 years behind in my psychological development. Like, when at this previous place, we used to run around and beat each other up and tie each other up, and it was just all the boys ran around together. And suddenly I arrived in this new school where everyone sat around at lunch and spoke to each other, and the boys were picking up girls, and it was a totally different world. And I went from being a popular, like one of the most popular kids, playing a lot of sport, fully connected, to being the social outcast, and just spending my lunch times all by myself, hiding behind the trees so nobody knew that I was by myself. And I spent the rest of my schoolhood just not figuring out the system, just not able to connect, not able to, and then I was small, so I got beat, and I got all of that going on. So this contrast was so extreme at that age. It was so different between just this life of feeling so free and connected and supported and loved, to this life of feeling isolated, disconnected, like there was something wrong with me, like I was broken, and I just never could figure out that social system. So there became this intense interest in the personal, like feeling like something was so broken inside me, that there was something so wrong with me, that I needed to go sort that out. And I understand now that that's all maybe the wrong reasons to land up in a spiritual path, but that's kind of led me into meditating and doing things to try to figure out what was wrong. What was wrong with me? What was so broken? And also searching for that deep connection, that sense of belonging, that sense of being connected and supported and loved. And so really I found that contrast was one of the big impetuses into this fascination. And I've always been a good sportsman, so I also had those incredible experiences, even in the school where I didn't fit in, where we elevated to a totally new state, and the team would suddenly operate at a new level. Or when I was climbing a mountain, and suddenly, bang, I'd be climbing, and I did a lot of soloing, because I found that really fascinating, of when I'm totally by myself, and if I fall, I die, and the way that induces these flow states. So I got really fascinated by flow states, by how something shifted in that flow state, and this identity, this thing that didn't feel whole, all of that dropped off, and suddenly there was a totally different way of being in the world.
It's so beautiful that you came to that realization. I know so many individuals that are listening are kind of just entering the cocoon stage, I feel like, where they are just recognizing the conditions that they've crafted through the experiences that they've lived and witnessed, and how we all build these identities of ourselves so we can make sense of who we are. So we can say, okay, I fit in here, and this is my primary role and responsibility within this herd.
Yeah.
Why do you think we do that? I know it's something to do around safety and that belonging, but I would love to hear your insights on why you think that we create those herd mentalities in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, I can speak for myself, and obviously I work with people a lot on this, but I think, speaking about my own experience might be just a little more impactful or meaningful. And I went to university and I did the right degree that would guarantee me a good job, and did all of that. There was that part of me that always wanted. I had a dream, even like when I was 17, of living in a community. And in that era, I read a lot of books. So my dream was that we would all have this shared library, and we'd like share our books and we'd talk about books, because just having people that I could do that with felt like my dream. The dream got a little bit bigger over the years, or different. But it was that longing to live in a community that I belonged in. But at the same time, there was this part that was like, I need to look after myself, I need to survive. So I'm going to study an engineering degree, and then I'm going to study an accounting degree, and I'm going to get the right job, make a lot of money. And then when I made all that money, then I will go and live the life that I want to live. But then I'll have my life secure, I didn't understand there was another possibility. I'll now be secure. I'll have enough money stored up, and then I can go live in my community and do the things that I wanted to do. So that was definitely one of the drivers. Is just this programming we have around security and financial security, and our ability to live in the world and the trust in the world. But then there was definitely some other things running, like there was this desperate need in my system to belong, and there's just this hollowness and this voidness that sat inside me, and it just like and I largely managed to avoid it, avoid feeling it, but it was always there. And this need to feel like significant, to feel like I belong, and somehow the programming that I had been given, with my upbringing, was that if I became a successful businessman, then and I did significant things in the world that way, then people would love me, and they would, and I'd get love that way. And that there was definitely a program running in my system that if I didn't have money, and I didn't have success, and I didn't have the car and the house, then I had nothing to contribute. I had nothing to offer anyone, and therefore I wouldn't be loved.
I feel like
that was definitely driving a lot of what I did in business and what I strove for in my businesses.
I think there's so much programming that, especially in the West, within that same construct, at least in New Jersey, where I grew up. It was I still get comments from my family of like, well, don't you want a house? Don't you want a husband? Like, you're 35. Why are you starting a business now? Come home, sell houses. I get these comments, and it is this ingrained societal belief of, making sure everyone fits, right? So the economy thrives and we can progress forward. So there's so many things happening with the universe right now, which I think is so beautiful, that more and more people are starting to recognize they don't necessarily need to engage in that collective understanding, that they can step outside of those parameters and really check into, okay, that might be a beautiful thing for someone, but why am I here? What is my true identity? What are the values that I want to embody and offer to the world? And then, okay, at the core of my truth, I want to hang out with a bunch of people that read books and we can all talk about books. Like, that's an innate value. I'm sure there are other people with those innate values. Like, let me find them.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. There's that programming of what it is to be valued, and what it is to be successful. And our parents really wanted the best for us. It's the only way they knew how to express love. I mean, for my parents, for me to be successful and to do well at school and get good marks and do well at sport and etc. That in their mind, that guaranteed me a good life, a happy life. In the programming they run, so they programmed me to that I would receive their attention when I got that, when I did that, when I behaved in those ways, and my parents really did the best that they could, but at the same time, they had no way of meeting my heart in unconditional love. Given their backgrounds and what had gone on in their lives, they didn't have that capacity. They were never taught, they never knew, and so they didn't know how to just love me for what I was, where I was. So we kind of had these situations where if I expressed any emotion, I got sent to my room, and I could only come out when I was civilized again. And they were doing what they knew how to do to train me to exist in the world as best as they knew how to be in the world and to survive, really. But in the end, my emotional life is actually, now that I'm going through this and have been through this, being connected to my emotion and feeling my emotional life is the most important thing in the world to me. And it's got a parallel in our entire society. We've got this patriarchy that's existed, which is a real suppression of the feminine. And it's served its purpose, and it's been absolutely necessary to have the patriarchy. It's created a lot of stuff, and it's caused some damage. And some of the damage is this general suppression of connection to our true selves.
As well as it's the separation, but I almost think that we have to first become aware of the separation and create more separation to find union within the two aspects of ourselves. Really. And maybe it's just the word choices that I'm stating. So separation in the sense of the awareness of the duality of self within the soul and the intellectual mind, and getting clear enough to separate the thought to recognize that there are two players. And within that, you can become integrated.
Yes.
And it's so much about this, the release of identity, and really looking at the ways in which we show up, and getting to this place now where you and I are at. It's like, okay, we want to reintegrate in society. We feel this pull to show up. How do we stay true to our authentic nature after you've been doing it for 5 years, living in the Amazon, living in Peru where you are now, kind of living off the grid, so to say. I did it for a little over 2 years. And now that I'm back in the grid, back into society, it's been a beautiful but intense reintegration to this collective consciousness that is not necessarily as tapped in. Again, language is such an interesting thing for how we all believe in the languages that we're speaking.
So, I mean, I get exactly, I think I get what you're saying, because I feel that it's this, the programs we run that we learned how to survive as children, our personal identity, as you call it. So we learned these programs, which really were programs that came into being for our best, with the best intention. And some we learned through dealing with our own trauma and our own pain. And what certainly was true for me is that I thought that was who I was. I really believed that those programs that I was running and that identity was who I was. And this was despite the fact that I had, before my shattering, already spent 6 months in the Amazon, drinking ayahuasca 3 times a week. And I'd already spent months, living in a Buddhist monastery in silence. And still, I had never really understood a lot of that this identity, this programs that were running were not who I was. So this journey has been a journey of also attachment. I thought attachment meant attachment to material possessions. I didn't have any idea of what attachment really means in attachment to anything, and attachment to people, attachment to ideas, attachment to concepts. But this process of stripping away the programs and the personal identity and feeling what's below there. Because for me, certainly, there's been a lot of pain, a lot of hurt, and a lot of fear, and in some cases, terror. You're really finding a terrorized little being inside who's absolutely petrified of the world. And as these programs strip off, finding some of those things and then realizing how much those things drove my life. And being able to sit there, to be able to hold myself through it, and also being able to have others hold me through that. And allow my nervous system to get strong enough to hold all those terrorized, petrified, scared, painful, hurt pieces, and so that they start to integrate in themselves. And as those integrate in me, I'm finding my integration back into the world is getting easier. Because something in my system is not getting triggered into the responses the way it used to.
100%.
So that's what it feels like, this integration that's going back into this default reality, the default constructs that you're speaking about, is a real integration back into a world where those types of traumas and fears and pains and etc. are the prominent driving force of our current paradigm, our default paradigm. And that internal, the internal that was in me is reflected outside in the world. I think this whole survival, striving, etc., it comes out of this little piece inside us that doesn't believe that we'll be looked after. It doesn't believe we'll be loved. It doesn't believe we'll get the food we need. It doesn't believe we'll get the shelter. And it seems that while I was attached to all these outside ideas, attached to this personality, attached to all of this, I wasn't truly able to flow with the universe. It's like if you imagine that I'm a toroidal structure and information's coming in or energy's coming in to my system and coming out of my system, and the amount of information that I can process that can move through my system is dependent upon how fast I can spin, how fast that energy can spin through my system, and then obviously how big the system is. And in that paradigm, when I'm holding on to things on the outside, what I'm doing is I'm clinging on, which prevents this system from being able to spin. As I release that, which the yogis just said, it's coming in to the center of yourself. So as I come into the center of myself, which is just the gravitational force coming into the center, there's the other force, which is the expansive force, which is the transmission or the energy going out. So as I come more into my own center, I'm able to transmit more energy back into the field, more information back, and then I become a better information processor. But to do that requires the reduction in the clinging energy that, like, oh my God, I'm not going to survive. And okay, I'm being well looked after in this energy field of the universe, of the collective, as you call it, the collective consciousness. And I'm serving the collective, and I'm putting that information back in, and I'm taking that information into myself as well. So I then can really enter into flow states with the universe. And I don't anymore have to do extreme sports to do it. Don't have to be like spinning my paraglider out of the sky backwards to get into a flow state. Yeah, and I don't have to be on ayahuasca or LSD or, you know, doing a massive dynamic meditation or something like that to get into flow states. I still enjoy that, but it's not necessary. I can kind of live in the flow state with the universe a lot more of the time. I mean, all the time would be too much, but a lot more of the time, and it's much more peaceful. And what I'm seeing, the work that I do in circling and what I do at like Africa Burn and the burns and things like that, where we work in these highly amplified fields, like we really get a first-hand experience of what it feels like to be in a universe that is intelligent. Like when you go to a big field like the burn, like synchronicities happen like this. It's instant manifestation. You think of somebody, oh wow, I wonder where they are, and boom, they pop up in the playa like in front of you, and it's like, oh, okay. And in that amplified field, you really get to experience how the universe is actually constructed, how the intelligence of this collective is actually working. When I work in circle, you work and people become vulnerable and they drop through these barriers and these defenses, because we all develop these defenses to protect that little part of us that couldn't really be allowed as young children with our parents and in the womb. And as we get vulnerable and we drop these defenses, which is what I like, the clinging and the defenses, we allow more information into our system. We start to create a coherent field. And as that field increases in coherence, suddenly we'll hit a transition point, like water going to ice. And when we're at that transition point, the field goes collective. And as a facilitator, I don't have to do anything. I just sit there and I love it. Because like somebody will kick over a bottle of water, and it'll go clank, clank, clank while somebody's talking, and it'll trigger their rage. Yeah, and they'll then rage. I'll get a chance to express the rage that's been in them that they've never expressed. And then that rage will trigger the person whose parents maybe were violent when they were young, and they'll get a chance to feel through what they never felt through then, and that'll trigger, and suddenly it's like within 10 minutes, it's like so much collective history comes up and gets resolved and gets integrated, and at a collective as well as an individual level, it just gets resolved. And you look at that and you're going, there's no way on earth that I could facilitate that. There's no way that I could create those events. It'll be crazy things like a door will slam at just the right time. And in the middle of something, somebody's going off and the door will suddenly slam, and it'll break it into the next movement that needs to happen. Or a bird, we had the one circle, this bird flew into the window at the exact moment, and everyone was like, oh my God, like this is actually the way it works. But what's happening is all these fear structures that we run, all the defenses, all the programs, all the clinging prevents us from existing. And all that is information that goes into the field. So all our fears, all our anxiety, all our programming is all thoughts that go back into the field. So instead of this field being this highly coherent field that I'm talking about in circle, instead of it being that, or you get it to burn as well, instead of being this highly amplified, coherent field, it's this like messy field with all of this crazy information, the fears and the doubts and the uncertainties, and that's all in the field as well. So the universal intelligence is trying to navigate this as best as it can, but it takes a little longer because there's so much noise in the field. So like for me, really, my work is how do we create these coherent fields? How do we create these highly coherent fields where you've got high synchronicity, you've got instant manifestation, we're in this commune with it, and our thoughts are clear, and the energy we're putting into the field is clear. The information we're feeding into the field is clear. And for that to be clear, the hearts have to be open. The hearts have to be open, the hearts have to be connected, and we have to be feeling this type of flow that's starting to develop with you and I now.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. Thank you. If there's one message that's coming through you right now to be shared, what is it?
Yeah, it really is that we my experience in the last 5 years has just been that the universe really is doing the best job it possibly can to give us exactly what we need. And this quantum supercomputer, as I call it, the collective consciousness, but collective consciousness doesn't even feel powerful enough for me. It's like it's this intentions that we are putting into the field, and then this algorithm that seems to be able to find this incredible way through all of these intentions to satisfy us all to the best of its ability. And in satisfying us is really interesting, is it doesn't necessarily give us what we think we need. It gives us what we truly need. Yeah. So if we understand, like I've been in this place of manifesting a life where I'm connecting with incredible people, thought leaders in the field, people who are on the edge of creating these new realities. And and there's a number of people that I would love to be conversing with and thinking with and exploring with. And then I come to Bolivia, and I'm traveling in Bolivia, and three of us split off after the tour with Nassim, and we land up dropping into those spaces. And I realize that right here, right now, I'm experiencing everything emotionally that I was manifesting. It's not in the form that I expected. I'm not sitting at a conference doing it. I'm not sitting with Nassim or one of those people doing it. I'm sitting with incredible people, and we're creating together, and we're collaborating together, and I'm living the life that I was manifesting, even if it's not in the form. And the minute I recognize that, there's a bliss state that, well, in that case, open, where I can't really even fully describe it. I mean, you've probably had these experiences where suddenly
Everything lights up. Yeah,
everything
lights
is
up.
the perfection, and I'm like, oh my God! If that tiny little thing hadn't happened, I wouldn't be here now. If that incredible event that I resisted and hated didn't happen, I wouldn't be here now. If that thing that I thought was an absolute disaster hadn't have happened exactly that way at that time, right then, with that person, I wouldn't be in this exquisite, incredible, beautiful place that I'm experiencing now. And it's, I find for me, often a place of grief, gratitude, love, bliss, sorrow, pain, all mixed together in the most exquisite, like, pot of just exquisiteness. It's like, oh my God, like, everything's integrating, masculine, feminine, my child, my adult, the pain, the pleasure, it's just all the dualities have all dropped off. They all exist at the same time, and they're all exquisite. And it's every time I realize that the universe has just provided exactly what I'm looking for. Right here, right now, there's no need to look anywhere else. There's no need to search. There's no need to work. There's no need to fix. There's no need to do anything. Right here, it's now.
Beautiful. If people want to come to your circles or Africa Burn or ... all of the incredible offerings that you are giving, how would they find you?
Yeah. Well, the best way is probably a Facebook. So it would be Awakening Creation Collab. So it's collaboration, Awakening Creation. They could also get me on Wild Hearted Awakening. I recently, so I'm in the process of shifting. I was doing Wild Hearted Awakening with my ex-partner, and I branched off into Awakening Creation. So we still do some stuff together under Wild Hearted Awakening or Awakening Creation, or you could get hold of me directly on Facebook.
And we'll post all of your info below too.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your heart and your gifts It's been an amazing 30 some minutes together, or whatever the time is that has gone by.
Yeah, beautiful connecting with you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you everyone so much for listening. Do us a favor, go over to iTunes, share this message with anyone that you think needs to hear it, and leave us some comments and feedback below. Till next Thursday, this has been Carrie with Embodied Enlightenment.
Coolness. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm Carrie Merriam, and you've been listening to the Embodied Enlightenment podcast. You can follow Embodied Enlightenment on Instagram or join the private Facebook group as well. You can also follow me, Carrie Merriam, on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. If you've liked this podcast, please go over to iTunes or YouTube and comment, subscribe, and leave a review. And if you think someone could benefit from the teachings within this episode, please feel free to share it. Stay tuned next week for another conscious conversation. And as always, thank you so much for being